Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome back to my channel, and this is where you see a different angle for everything. So, yesterday a friend of mine asked me, what's a sanction? And good thing you asked me. Because for most of us, sanctions are something that I never talked about, even ignored. People don't even know there's such a thing that exists, except the countries which are sanctioned, of course. People think that, okay, this sanction thing is just a way to sort of punish or stop countries from doing unacceptable things. But actually nothing could be further than the truth, or from the truth. And so if you go back a few centuries into medieval times and then going forward after that, countries at war used to conduct something called a siege. One country would surround the city of another country and prevent everything from going in or out. People, supplies, food, water, whatever needed to be done. This meant that the besieged city would slowly run out of everything, food and everything it needed to live, and then the population would surrender because they were starving and they were sick and all sorts of things. But this is a pretty uncivilized view of warfare. So in today's civilized warfare, what we end up with something called an embargo. What's an embargo? An embargo is the same thing, but it applies to countries, not cities. The last siege that happened was the siege of Leningrad, the real one, a big one. Happened was the siege of Leningrad, where the Germans and the Finns basically surrounded the city of Leningrad in Soviet Russia. Today it's called St. Petersburg, of course. And for 872 days, over 1 million civilians died of starvation, mostly of starvation and sickness. Since this became very uncivilized after World War II, or even before World War II, the word embargo came into being. What is embargo? It's the same thing as a siege, but you do it to a country. You usually do it only for a few things, not for everything. This is very similar to the idea that, after Japan invaded China in 1937, the US and the UK imposed an embargo on oil flowing into Japan. Now, Japan's an island nation. And when it ran out of oil, hey presto, you have Pearl Harbor and World War II. Now, an embargo, unfortunately, is a bit restrictive because normally people frown upon embargoes conducted by a nation or a group of nations. So after World War II, only the UN has the authority to enforce an embargo. Hence the embargo on apartheid South Africa, for example. So then this was remarkably inconvenient to a lot of countries, so we came up with the idea of a sanction, a unilateral sanction. What is that? I make a decision to sanction you. Now this is like country A says to country B, hey, if you sell anything to country B, I'm going to punish you, country A. You see what I mean? So here's the problem with that. This inevitably, if you're very powerful, as country, let's say country X is very powerful and it's able to punish country A will be so scared that it will stop selling things to country B. If those things are food and medicines and spare parts and things like that, country B gets slowly strangled. It loses economic power. People start dying. Unfortunately, this is also illegal because there are many treaties and agreements which guide international law, according to international law. When you say international law, it's not a single law or a single book. It's actually a whole set of different treaties and agreements that countries have arrived at over a period of time, like the Rome Statute, like the UN Charter, like the Geneva Conventions. Now, the Geneva Conventions is where we come to. What is the Geneva Conventions? It's a set of treaties that have been signed by most countries in the world which recognize the laws of warfare, the treatment of prisoners of war, and many other aspects, mostly of warfare. Okay? Now, according to the Geneva Conventions, specifically Article 33 of Geneva Conventions, sanctions are a form of what is called collective punishment. Now, what is collective punishment? Remember, this is the reason I say that everybody should have some acquaintance with international law and international affairs. Even if you're not involved directly in any way, these are things that affect every single citizen of every single country in the world. So you have to know something about it. Article 33 of the Geneva Conventions says that collective punishment is illegal. It's against international law, both letter and spirit. What is collective punishment? Collective punishment is a mafia tactic. Remember, if you cross the mafia, they won't just kill you, they'll kill your family in retaliation. So this keeps you from not crossing the mafia. It's a mafia tactic. It's evil. It's a gangster tactic. But powerful countries use that tactic every time without any reproof because they are effectively above the law, or they consider themselves above the law, and no country has the strength to stand up against it. Therefore, one must always keep in mind that the whole concept of sanctions, when you hear, there's a sanction against this guy or a sanction against this country, it's killing people. It's killing people in their tens of thousands, actually. And it is fundamentally against international law, both in letters and in spirit. Read up Article 33 of the Geneva Conventions to get a better idea. So, I hope that this session has made you a little more aware of a different perspective, a different angle on what is a sanction. Thank you. See you next time.